President Trump tweeted last night that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents will begin making mass arrests of immigrants in the U.S. in what some are describing as a scare tactic. Trump wrote, quote, that next week ICE will begin the process of removing millions of illegal aliens who have illicitly found their way into the United States. The Washington Post reports that officials with knowledge of the preparations were not aware of Trump's plan to divulge their enforcement plans on Twitter.
Come on, man.
Joining us now for context is MSNBC correspondent
it's so important.
Jacob Soboroff.
It's so important.
I would think so.
Unbelievable.
Context. So this is where, listen, this is where we are. Yeah. This is where we're going to be because Donald Trump knows nothing else. He is, as Paul Simon saying once, a one-trick pony. Gets in trouble, bashes immigrants.
And he goes back to the play. The saying is go back to the play if it works. He goes back to the play even though he knows that it doesn't work. This is just family separation by another name, is what he is threatening. He's threatening to deport number one, it's operationally impossible to deport millions of undocumented people that are in the United States.
We don't have the money to do it. So
even if he wants to, or the space.
What did we hear before? Like it costs, I think, 400,000. Is the most we could ever deport.
400,000 was, and
even that is an astronomical price.
I think he feels some sort of inadequacy because President Obama, who did earn the nickname Deporter-in-Chief, was the one to hold the record 400,000 undocumented immigrants deported in 2012.
So can we stop right there?
Yeah.
When Donald Trump became president of the United States, illegal border crossings were at a 50-year low.
As low as they've ever been.
As low as they've ever been. Since Donald Trump has been there, screeching and howling about how he's going to close the border, the smugglers have been able to manipulate people in Central America saying, we got to go now. We got to go now. Is there any indication that people are going to catch on to the fact? Do we need to do a better job reporting that now he's doing a much worse job than Barack Obama, and he's created this crisis?
There have never been more families coming across the southern border and being apprehended at the southern border. And remember, all those families are turning themselves in. Donald Trump is a human billboard for illegal migration. The way he's talking about this, when he came into office and the numbers dipped, they called it the Trump effect because he was talking tough and people were scared. People aren't scared of Donald Trump anymore. They're rushing into the country. His threats are basically a big flashing neon signs saying, come here now or you're never going to get in. And that's why you're seeing so many people come into the country. His policies, his attempt to deter have failed spectacularly, miserably, and we're seeing the consequences today.
Mike.
What have you heard about the construction of a new facility at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to house even more children separated from their families?
Well, and that is part of the problem. HHS is considering at military bases, Julia Ainsley reported this, opening what are called soft-sided tent cities in order to house all of the unaccompanied migrant children that are coming into the country. And the thing you have to remember about that is, and it's the same thing we reported during separations, when you're on a federal military base, those bases are not bound by the same state and local jurisdictions that some of the other shelters are. So spot inspections by state and local officials are not something that's going to happen in areas like that. And that just is where we are today.
Do we have a ballpark figure in the number of children of whatever ages, up to 17 or 18 years of age, who are being held in facilities around the country?
Off the top of my head, I don't know right now, but it's in the thousands. It's in the high thousands, and it's in they call it the red. HHS calls it the red. They're basically in critical stage with virtually no space left to hold any other migrant children. But what the president is doing last night and this morning by threatening to deport millions of people isn't even connected to what we're seeing going on at the southern border, and that's what's important to know.
Well, let's talk about the threat. Millions of illegal aliens, undocumented individuals, deported in some unspecified time frame. What does that look like practically? Let's say theoretically, for this exercise, he actually follows through on this threat. How does it happen? What does it look like? What are the legal ramifications? What are the political ramifications? What are the societal ramifications?
ICE goes into neighborhoods, literally targets parents in many cases that have American-born, American citizen children. While these children are at school, while the parents are at work, or in any wide variety of circumstances, they're going to go and do a raid on those families and take those parents.
So you take the parents away, rip up the families. Where do the parents go?
They're going to be deported back to their home countries. They'll go into ICE
Do they not
detention.
have an adjudication process?
They'll go into ICE detention, go through the immigration process, but be put into some kind of removal proceedings, and then eventually go off to their
So we're going to need to expand detention facilities to hold the people that we pick up who have American citizen children.
Yes, and like I said, operationally, what he's threatening is literally not possible. So what he is doing is attempting to terrorize, literally, by definition, the millions of families who are here and have undocumented status.
What happened? Mike, he's also playing to it. I mean, he's playing to his base.
Right.
His 35%.
Well, it's predictable.
He's playing to it.
It's the hits. It's the greatest hits.
The greatest
It goes right
hits.
back to it.
Yeah.
It goes right back
Even
to
though
it.
it can't be done, doesn't have the money to do it, and has absolutely nothing to do with the crisis that he has created on the southern border.
So, yes, and the reality of this is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this apprehension of people that ICE is supposed to begin could result in something like this. The father goes to work in the morning, or a landscaper, whatever. The mother goes to work at a restaurant. The kids are in school. The kids were born in the United States. Maybe,
junior high, high school,
not.
Elementary school, whatever. This has happened.
At the end of their school day, their parents have been scooped up and are gone.
And they may see it on a YouTube video posted by their friend. It might happen outside of their school or at their local restaurant or at the local supermarket.
It's the United States of America.
I know.
And was one thing that you said, Joe, he's playing to his base, but I don't even think that everyone in the Trump base is dying for this. I mean, it was in the family, during the family separation about a year ago, literally 1 year ago. I was down on the border talking to you all at the height of the separation crisis. People that supported Donald Trump were sickened by what he was doing to rip families, parents and children apart. This would have the exact same effect. He knows he can't even go through with it, but he just wants people to believe.
It would have the exact same
something
effect, except people know these family units. I mean, these are family units in our society.
They're our neighbors.
We know.
Yeah.
They're literally our neighbors, our co-workers.
I always tell the story about evangelicals that I knew, that I went to church with, being sickened by what they saw when we would go over and provide relief to Mississippi and Louisiana during Katrina.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is shocking, equally even more shocking, Jacob. And again, it doesn't. He can't do it, first of all, and secondly, it will terrorize people. But third, it won't reduce the illegal crossings at the southern border.
Cynthia McFadden has a spot, I believe, on NBC Nightly News tonight. Save the Children, and it's in the entire history of the organization, has never operated domestically within the United States, and they're on the southern border right now, operating a shelter to alleviate the crush, the humanitarian crisis down there. What Donald Trump tweeted about last night has nothing to do with that. It'll fix it in no way, shape, or form, and he's only continuing to make this issue worse.
So what can Americans do to help?
Well, first of all, get involved with some of the advocacy organizations that are down there and literally taking care of the thousands of migrants that are being dropped off at bus stops throughout not just the South, the Southwest, but the entire United States. They're being flown around the country and basically dropped to figure out what to do. The other thing you can do, and this it's controversial, but it shouldn't be, is make sure that there is a place for these undocumented migrant children to go and to sleep. HHS, everything that I've seen, been inside these shelters, takes good care of these children. They have to have a place to go before they can come into the United States and be taken care of. And there's a lack of funding there, and that's something that's not getting done in Washington right now.
Jacob Soboroff, we can't thank you enough for your continued reporting on this story.
Thank you guys
so much.
And
thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.